What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be bringing forth my top Week 10 waivers, 10 players total that you guys can pick up to boost your squad entering Week 10 of fantasy football. And with Crunch Time heating up for your guys' playoff push, these pickups can help you pick up some wins through bye weeks and injuries that you may be facing. With crunch time heating up for your playoff push, these pickups can help you pick up some wins now through your bye weeks, through your injuries, and potentially set you up for a bye week for your fantasy football playoff push. Hopefully, you guys won in week 9, but if you didn't, I'll be outlining 5 main players and 5 honorable mentions at the running back and wide receiver position that can help you secure the dub in week 10 of fantasy football. But before we get into the video, as always, we're going to hit the intro. All right, as you guys know, if you've been watching the series for a while, before we get into the main 5 players in the honorable mentions, I just want to quickly go through some guys that are probably rostered, but check to make sure on your waiver wires. Number 1, Kenyon Drake, running back of the Baltimore Ravens, with Gus Edwards sidelined for this week and potentially for the future with that hamstring issue. Kenyon Drake has the opportunity to be the running back 1 in that Baltimore backfield. And as we know, at this point of the year, if you need some running back help, you can secure a guy with a potential large workload on one of the best running teams in the NFL. So if Kenyon Drake's available, don't mind stashing him. And if Gus Edwards misses any more time, potentially playing him as a top 25 level option. Treylon Burks, wide receiver of the Tennessee Titans, he would be my main pickup, but when I checked, he was rostered in over 50% of leagues. If he's available in your league, if you don't have an IR, maybe somebody didn't stash him on IR, he is the perfect player to pick up for your fantasy playoff push. I mean, this is a stud first round caliber wide receiver on a team desperate for wide receiver options. He hasn't played in the last few weeks, but realistically, he is by far their most talented wide receiver option. And I mean, somebody's got to be relevant on this offense other than Derrick Henry. Treylon Burks clearly has the talent and opportunity at hand to be that number 2 weapon in this Titans offense. Jameson Williams, wide receiver of the Detroit Lions. Very similar case to Treylon Burks, very talented player, high draft capital for the Detroit Lions. But we do know that the Lions actually operate with much more passing volume than the Titans do. We know Amon-Ra St. Brown's a stud. We know DeAndre Swift is a stud when he's on the field, but there's a clear opportunity for that tertiary third target, if you will, role in this offense. This team is able to put up points. I do want Jameson Williams on all of my teams, especially if you're a high seed and you want to make that push and potentially have a top 25, top 30 level wide receiver option in your fantasy football playoffs. Garrett Wilson and Drake London very much fit that exact same bill. They're probably going to be rostered in the majority of your leagues, but both of them are under 70% in Yahoo Fantasy. So if they're somehow available, go pick them up. Garrett Wilson, top 30 level expectations for the foreseeable future. Drake London, obviously the upside given his target share, given his standing in that Falcons offense, where if they do throw the ball more, we know that we're getting an alpha level wide receiver earning 30% of the targets on that team. Darnell Mooney, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears. We've seen Justin Fields take that next step. Looks like the next young elite quarterback in the NFL. George Pickens, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the recent trade of Chase Claypool. He was already getting edged out by George Pickens, but it really opens up that opportunity to clearly identify himself as that number 2 weapon in this passing offense. Kenny Pickett had his bye week. We could potentially see an uptick in play from the quarterback position when it comes to Pickett, really learning and advancing in that offense. And I mean, George Pickens has proven enough from a talent standpoint to be able to earn targets in this offense. So I really want him if he's somehow, again, available in your leagues. And then finally, Rondale Moore, wide receiver of the Arizona Cardinals. Again, I don't know why he's so low rostered, but 20+% target share in 4 of his last 5 games, really has that clear status as the number 2 weapon on this Cardinals offense. Transitioning off the players that might be rostered, I kind of wanted to group a bunch of guys together in this portion because they all really represent the same opportunity. May not present you immediate output, but are definitely high leverage plays to have, especially in that fantasy playoff push. All of the high priority handcuffs. Rachaad White, running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, really edging into Leonard Fournette's work over there in Tampa Bay. I believe the discrepancy in touches this week was 11-7. Rachaad White just looks like the more explosive, better fit for this offense. I do think in the near future, we could potentially see their opportunity shares flip in favor of Rachaad White. Alexander Mattison, running back of the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, we know he is a clear-cut handcuff. We know if Dalvin Cook's healthy, he's most likely to be the bell cow of this offense. But as we know, I mean, Alexander Mattison, anytime he is given a starting opportunity, is a top 5 to 10 level running back in your rankings. This is a clear handcuff, a clear workhorse if Dalvin Cook were to ever go down, and someone that I really, really want to have on my roster going to the fantasy football playoffs. Because at the end of the day here, minimal output, versus potential huge payoff, I'm betting on Alexander Mattison any day of the week. Same thing with Isaiah Spiller, running back of the Los Angeles Chargers. 7 carries this past game. Really usurped Sony Michel in that running back pecking order for the Chargers. Again, if anything were to happen to Austin Eckler, I think this is the most talented back behind Eckler in this backfield. He could potentially see, a 15, 20 plus opportunity per game type of workload on this team. Also with Jaylen Warren, same thing. He looks explosive, clear receiving role. If Najee were to ever go down, he is a guy that you want to pick up. And then finally, Elijah Mitchell, currently scheduled to be activated off of IR within the next 21 days. Obviously, we know Christian McCaffrey is the locked-in workhorse of this backfield, but Elijah Mitchell's no slouch in his own right. He's a clear, great fit for the Shanahan scheme. And if anything were to happen to Christian McCaffrey, obviously, a volatile player, older running back, if he were to experience any injury issues, Elijah Mitchell would be that clear-cut next guy in line. But now let's get into the official top 5 list of my week. Number 1, waiver pickup of the week is going to be Jeff Wilson Jr., running back of the Miami Dolphins, rostered in 48% of Yahoo Fantasy leagues. And kicking off this list, new Dolphin, Jeff Wilson, traded at the deadline, 5th-round pick, going to the San Francisco 49ers. Jeff Wilson going back the other way to Mike McDaniel, a.k.a. Kyle Shanahan's protege. And he started his Dolphin career really, really strong. 12 opportunities, over 16 PPR points, and commanded a 50-50 split of this Dolphins backfield with Raheem Mostert. I really view him and Mostert as these interchangeable backs, similar type of light rest of season in terms of their range of outcomes. I think they're, low-end running back 2s, high-end running back 3s with top 15 level upside if the other were to go down. With Wilson, he is the standout running back of the waiver wire this week. I think he's a must-add on teams if you have a fragile running back depth chart on your fantasy football roster, whether, you waited early in your drafts, whether, you had a key injury like a Javonte Williams go down. I think Jeff Wilson can get you by, skate you RB2 level numbers for the rest of the way. Again, a consistent producer on a potentially great offense with Tua Tagovailoa yielding the helm over there in Miami. He showed he's a good player on the 49ers when Elijah Mitchell got hurt. And I do think, again, this could be a potentially 50-50 or possibly a split favoring Jeff Wilson going down the stretch, especially given their play against Chicago. Jeff Wilson looked like the much better player. 51 rushing yards to Mostert's 26. Producing the receiving game, Mostert didn't catch either of his 2 targets. So definitely something to watch development-wise in terms of fab. 20 to 30% should be able to get done. But at this point of the year, there's not really many options on your waiver wire. If you have to bid more than 30%, I'm fine with it. But realistically, 20 to 30% should be able to get it done for Jeff Wilson Jr. Number 2 on the week is going to be Odell Beckham, wide receiver of you tell me next. The most speculative ad of the entire week. OBJ is scheduled to return within the next few weeks after spending this offseason and the majority of the regular season recovering from that torn ACL he suffered in the Rams Super Bowl win over the Cincinnati Bengals. He's expected to be considering 4 teams upon his return: the Buffalo Bills, the Green Bay Packers, the New York Giants, and my beloved Dallas Cowboys. You guys see the jerseys hanging in the background. All these spots present significant opportunity, whether it's, for Buffalo's sake, access to a great offense or potential to be a high-ranking target on the team's pecking order. It's hard to envision that Odell, a top 20 level wide receiver talent in the NFL when he's fully healthy, could make a significant impact in any of these landing spots. My early guess right now that he's going to be deciding between Buffalo or Dallas based off all the reports we have heard. Again, Buffalo, elite offense. We have yet to see the significance of Josh Allen's injury, but of course, assuming he's healthy, the Buffalo Bills are arguably the best offense in the entire NFL. And then with the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott healthy. We know this team's going to win a lot of games. Odell Beckham could potentially be that, 2A, 2B, if you will, with Michael Gallup on this team. So I think both of these spots would be fantastic for Odell Beckham, potentially making him, a top 30-ish level wide receiver down the stretch going into your fantasy football playoffs. This is a guy that I want to spend all my fab dollars on right now before he's worth the whole budget once he signs with one of these top contenders. So Odell Beckham, the clear number 2 for me this week. Ton of upside of the wide receiver spot in terms of fab. I think you should be able to get him for 10 to 20%. But again, gauge your league market. If nobody's talking about him, maybe you sneak in a little cheaper of a bid. But of course, if everybody's talking about it, you might have to spend a little bit more. And I think Odell Beckham is the level of talent you should be willing to spend those dollars on. Number 3 pickup of the week is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver of the New York Giants. And the odd thing about this is that he actually plays for a team that is one of OBJ's rumored teams to consider. But assuming the Giants don't make that move, or even if they do, to be honest, Wan'Dale has operated as their clear best performing receiver in recent weeks. 4 targets, 8 targets, and 3 targets in his last 3 outings, and now gets the bye week to potentially earn that patented post-bye week rookie bump. The problem for Wan'Dale Robinson has not been his ability to earn targets when on the field. His problem, to put it simply, has been getting on the field to begin with, earning targets on limited routes thus far. I think he finally gets that full allotment of snaps. Giants know what they have. Second round draft capital. Saw a little bit of glimpses in recent weeks. I finally think he becomes a full-time receiver moving forward. And if that's the case, we could potentially see a similar role to how the Cardinals are using Rondale Moore over there in Arizona. Similar type of player, electric with the ball in their hands, clear slot wide receiver. I think Wan'Dale Robinson can be a top 35-ish level wide receiver if he gets those snaps to go his way. So in terms of fab, 10 to 20% should be able to get it done. I think he presents a ton of upside down the stretch, especially if you are a playoff contender and are looking at this waiver wire as a luxury. Number 4 pickup of the week is going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns, rostered in 21% of Yahoo Fantasy leagues. And to me, he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in fantasy right now. I mean, he's averaging nearly 12 PPR points per game in his last 5 games, 6.2 targets per game in the stretch. It's not great, but he's been extremely efficient. And the absence of David Njoku in the next couple of weeks gives him a relatively high, flex play level floor over the next couple of weeks, which we can't balk at. With this current point of the season, bye weeks, injuries, you name it, having a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones that you can plug into your flex off of your bench can provide a ton of value for you down the stretch. Obviously, though, the biggest reason why we want to scoop DPJ now is the potential for this offense once Deshaun Watson makes his season debut in Week 13 versus the Houston Texans. Right now, I think DPJ is that volume wide receiver 4 archetype. But the potential for him to reach, wide receiver 3 range rest of the season when Watson comes back is well within his range of outcomes. Building in the caveat, of course, if Cooper were to miss any time, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones would immediately become a top 25 to 30 level wide receiver play, especially with Deshaun Watson at the helm. So I think he's the perfect cheap stash at wide receiver, can get you by through bye weeks now. But again, as I mentioned, incredible upside in the fantasy football playoffs once Deshaun Watson returns to the Cleveland Browns organization. In terms of fab, 5 to 10% should be able to get it done for Donovan Peoples-Jones. I don't think you have to bid more. 5 to 10% seems very reasonable for DPJ this week. Number 5 waiver wire pick of the week is going to be Terrace Marshall, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers, rostered in 6% of Yahoo Fantasy leagues. And after posting that 9 target, 4 reception, 87-yard receiving line in week 8, he followed up that big performance, turning 6 targets into a 3 for 43 in one line against the Cincinnati Bengals. Marshall finally appears to be finding his groove in the NFL after the awful first 1.5 years he had, and is finally developing into that wide receiver, that big-bodied outside wide receiver, 50-50 ball type of wide receiver that they envisioned when they selected him in the second round of the 2021 draft. Role participation has increased dramatically on a team that really needed a number 2 weapon outside of DJ Moore in that passing game after losing both Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson at the deadline. He's really in similar territory to DBJ, in my opinion, in terms of his range of outcomes, but of course, without the potential quarterback upgrade that we're expecting for Donovan Peoples-Jones. With Terrace Marshall, I think he can be a solid, wide receiver 4-5, depth wide receiver in weeks where really nobody's going to be turning down that much needed depth pushing forward for your playoff spot. So in terms of fab, I think 5% should be able to get it done, but if you have to go up to 10, so be it. 5 to 10% seems like the sweet spot when it comes to Terrace Marshall Jr. My honorable mentions this week are going to be Chuba Hubbard, running back of the Carolina Panthers, obviously coming back from that ankle injury, limited fashion in Monday. I do think this could potentially be a 50-50 level committee between him and Deontay Foreman moving forward. I think Jordan Wilkins, running back of the Indianapolis Colts, is a fine pickup, assuming Jonathan Taylor misses another week. Obviously, we saw Deion Jackson potentially tear his ACL on Sunday, not expected to come back for the rest of the season. And when it comes to Jordan Wilkins, received the majority of that blunt work working behind Deion Jackson. 5 targets, 4 receptions, involved in the passing game. Fine running back, again, a replacement level guy, but if Jonathan Taylor were to miss any more time, becomes a clear running back 3, similar to what Tyler Algier represented in recent weeks when Cordell Patterson missed time. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver of the Washington Commanders, very simple. He's been battling hamstring issues. We still know he's a clear top 20 level wide receiver talent picked in this recent draft, was looking very, very good prior to that injury. And if he's back, I mean, he's a clear depth wide receiver, someone that you don't have to depend on. But obviously, the rookie has a ton of talent working on the Commanders team that loves to throw the football. I think he could potentially get back to the status that he was showing prior to that injury. Van Jefferson, wide receiver of the Los Angeles Rams, operating as that, number 2-3 weapon on this offense right now, has not been good to start the year in his first 2 games coming back from that injury, but we're looking for the role. We know that this team's going to throw the ball, given their status at running back, given the status of the offensive line. They're basically just going to try to throw it as much as possible. Obviously, we know Cooper Kupp is the stud that he is, but Van Jefferson could potentially develop into that number 2 weapon in this offense. And then finally, Matt Collins, wide receiver of the Las Vegas Raiders, has really usurped Hunter Renfrow in terms of the target pecking order on this offense. We know Devontae Adams is a clear-cut stud, but I do think Matt Collins could potentially be, a wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 down the stretch. And again, somebody that is not the worst option if you're filling in for bye weeks, especially to stash on your bench. But either way, I appreciate you guys for making it through this video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. Let's try to get this video to over 150 likes. So if you're watching, you're enjoying, hit that like button, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 20,000 subscribers. As always, appreciate you guys for that continued support over here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Take care. Stay tuned for later today. I will be dropping my top streamers going into week 10 of fantasy football to get you guys geared up at the quarterback, tight end, and defensive position. So stay tuned for that. Enjoy, you guys. Take care.